Hello BookTube. Well, it's been a while again. I have a feeling I'm going to be saying those words quite a lot in the near future, as I did warn you, it's exam time, and just in case you think I'm joking, this is currently my pile of marking. So I'm not avoiding you, it's nothing personal. I just like being paid at the end of the month so that I can buy more books and get, well, bandwidth for my internet. Nothing personal, I promise. I'm not ignoring you. Although I'm kind of ignoring videos, and that's just because you know what the black hole of the internet is like, right? I'm just going to watch one video. 3 hours later, YouTube's up to date, and the marking is still sitting at nowhere. So I'm really sorry. I'm going to catch up as soon as I can. The holidays start in 2.5, 3 weeks. So holding thumbs until I make it till there. But other than that, I have another piece of interesting news. I have a friend who I introduced to the writing of Neil Gaiman, and this week on Facebook I saw her with a photograph of her standing next to him. And the first thing that happened is I went completely jealous, and then straight after that, after I'd written my comment, of course, which expressed the amount of jealousy I had, I then read the sign that he was holding, and it said, "Hi Roz." I'm still excited about that, can you tell? So that made my day. And then on top of it, a lot of my friends have managed to circumnavigate the sun for again, and so I've been having this thing called a, how did they call it? It's a compound noun. It's social life. That's it, social life. I haven't had one of those in so long that I can barely remember how to say the word. But I've been doing that too, which is probably why the marking pile is as big as it is. But that's going to, it has to drop. I mean, whether I don't sleep for a day or 3, it will drop. Hopefully before I get more in on Friday, because Friday I get a whopper load in again. But we're going to ignore that, and we're going to get on, I'm going to get on with the purpose of this video, which was a quick wrap up of what I've been reading in the last 2 weeks, because it's been about that long since I've done a reading wrap up. So the first week I ignored because there was this one and only book, The Printmaker by Browen, Law-Viljoen. Now this is a South African novel, and it follows an artist and ever so vaguely his family or the people who are connected to him. And he does intaglio printing, which I thought was something that was really interesting, because I've only ever done lithography before, and by doing that I mean dabbled for a day. So I understood that process. But I really don't know what to make of this. I felt some of the writing was really beautiful, but I was disappointed with the characters. She follows 4 or 5 characters where you get a different chapter from a different person's point of view, and there was no difference between the voices. So that was a bit disappointing, because these people would have spoken differently. They were from different generations. One guy came from Zimbabwe, so there would have been a difference in speech or choice of words, vocabulary, diction, there we go, choose the right word. And so I was disappointed with that. I also found that I appreciated intaglio printing more from a trip on the internet, YouTube particularly, than I did in this book. And I don't know if that was because I was horribly confused, because lithography works the opposite. In intaglio, you're engraving the image that you want to have printed on the sheet of metal, and then you put the ink over the metal, you wipe it clean so it's just in the grooves that you've engraved, and then you print it. And I couldn't figure out how you're going to get the ink from inside the groove onto this, because lithography works the other way. You cut out the negative image so that you ink the side that's going to touch the paper, and the part that's lower avoids it. So I don't know if it was my confusion or whether it was just a lack of something. The story, it wasn't really one of those purposeful stories. Didn't quite have a plot. But there were elements that I did appreciate. They had a Zimbabwean refugee who was formerly a school teacher, and Zimbabwe has an extremely high standard of education. And this man was struggling to find work as a gardener in South Africa. And you also got to see how there's still discrimination against people, even in the New South Africa, with regards to things. And they even, well, she even lightly touched on the xenophobic attacks that were happening back in 2007, I think it was, and then last year or the year before. And I don't know if it was clear enough that somebody who didn't know about them would actually understand that that's what they were talking about, or what she was talking about. But I did appreciate it that it did feature. But it was a strange story, and I'm not sorry that I read it, but I'm still many weeks later trying to process exactly what I thought of it. I have a feeling that there might be elements of this book that linger with me for a while, which generally would suggest that it's a good story, but I'm not too sure why they would be lingering. Moving on, we now start with March Mystery Madness, which I'm really enjoying because, as you can see from the marking load, I don't have the brain space right now to be intellectual. I just want to have fun. So I started off with Tana French in the Woods, which I really, really enjoyed. It's a big whopper of a book, and I really did enjoy this one. I will confess that for personal reasons, I was a little disappointed at the end, but that was because I like all my I's dotted and T's crossed, and the one thing that I really loved, especially in the beginning, was the interaction between Cassie and Rob. Was it Rob? Well, this is what happens when you've read now on and you're doing the review late. This is why I don't like leaving reviews till late. But anyway, the narrator of the story, the I, I really loved the interaction between the two of them. So obviously there were elements that made me a little bit disappointed, but I liked the fact that everything wasn't cut and dried. And yeah, so I automatically went and picked up book 2, which I finished half an hour ago. So this is The Likeness by Tana French, and this one now follows Cassie, who we met in the first book. I was kind of hoping for a bit of a closure from the previous thing, or the previous book, but that didn't happen. But that's alright, because I got quite involved in this one, and I have now moved on, as I would have if I was a character involved in these books, if these characters existed in real life. So that was alright as well. This one I didn't love as much. It's also another big whopper, and I felt that there were parts that got a little bit long-winded there. When you've got a pile of marking to do and you kind of watching your Goodreads stats saying you are 3 behind schedule, you don't really want to waffle. At least I don't. So I did get a little impatient in places, but overall I was really satisfied with the story as well, and I really liked the way it ended. Also, not all the I's dotted, T's crossed ending, but I'm getting used to those. And then my favorite book, Recipes for Love and Murder by Sally Andrew. And I absolutely adored this. This was just what I was in the mood for. It's a cozy mystery, even though it discusses well, obviously it's a murder, so you've got murder in there, violence, but it also covered domestic violence, and not just of the character that was murdered. And so it covers heavy themes, but at no point did I feel weighed down by this. It was light, it was funny, it made me hungry. This woman, she becomes the agony aunt. Well, she's the agony aunt for the newspaper, but before she became the agony aunt, she used to do the recipe column. So every time there's a problem, she fixes it with food. I polished out the fridge reading this. It was brilliant. But I just really love this. The South Africanisms were in here were brilliant, and she covers it so that it was actually a nice blend, because usually when I read books where you've got a foreign language in there, or particularly Afrikaans, because then I really understand what's going on, and you'll have the Afrikaans phrase and then they'll just pretty much translate it in English afterwards, which I suppose is great for everybody else in the world. I mean, I appreciate it in other foreign languages that I don't speak, but it becomes a bit tedious when you do understand the original and now you have to read it in translation. Whereas she carried that off really well, where she would give you the clues as to what she said, but she didn't translate it word for word. So you got the idea of what was going on, even if you didn't understand everything. And yeah, living in this country, I'm used to that because we have 11 official languages. So there's always something going on where you just kind of get an idea and you go, yeah, I think I'm sorted. Not too sure, but maybe sorted. But I would really recommend this for cozy mystery reads. I loved it. I fell in love with it. It's got your murder, it's got humor, it's got a bit of romance in it. It's got everything you could need, and the suspense at the end, even though it was a cozy mystery, really kept me up until I was finished it last night. There were also some really nice phrases in here. They had a group of people who were waiting for the end of the world, and so the question was raised as to whether there was life after death, and I had to love it that Tani Maria turned around and said that she would like to have life before death first. And coming from my position, I completely understand where she's coming from, so I enjoyed that. There was only one thing that I had to complain about with this, and that is that they describe her as being a very well-rounded lady. She likes the food, the comfort food, and she's got a lot of reason for needing her comfort food or wanting it. And they describe her as being very well-rounded, soft in the wrong places and stuff. And then later on they tell you she's a size 38. 38 is not soft and rounded. I mean, that's barely even considered large bones. So I wasn't quite a fan of that idea. And yeah, you know, I just felt that that was giving a wrong message. If they said she was a 44, 46, I would have gone, yeah, okay, I can get that. But, you know, oh, here's me judging sizes on YouTube, public. Yeah, kill me now, let's get it over with. But anyway, I felt that that was a bit unnecessary or a bit harsh, considering that 38 is still considered well within your BMI for most people. Unless you're 4 foot, then you're screwed. But, you know, otherwise you're fine. So that was my reading for the week. I have currently got no books on the go because, as I said, I just finished The Likeness in about somewhere between half an hour and an hour ago. So I'm thinking of either picking up the second by Britta Bowler, which is, just give me a second, Lives Lost, or maybe, but I would usually read two at a time anyway, so I'm thinking maybe the third of Tana French, because then I've got that one as well, and it's a bit thinner, and I've got those stories going through my mind, and I'd like to leave the second Tani Maria for maybe towards the end of the month when I'm finished with marking, and then I can just enjoy it in one day, because I'm really going to enjoy that one in one day. Oh, it was fabulous. I think the person that I would really recommend that book to would be people who picked up Alexander McCall Smith's #1 Ladies Detective Agency and were disappointed because it wasn't actually a crime novel or a cozy mystery. It was basically a character study of the people in Botswana. And I would recommend it to people who found that not up their alley because they were expecting something else. Because this one has the same characters, well, the same type of characters, the same type of charm. Granted, not quite the same type because this is white Afrikaans farmers in the Klein Karoo. But it's got the same charm, the same feeling, the same, I wouldn't say naivety, but there's an innocence to it. And yet you still have the crime, and it's a very good crime. I did not guess who it was, and that does not happen often in the slightest. I think there's 3 books I've read that left me going, what? Yeah. Although I suppose if I'd put more effort into it, I could have. But I don't feel like putting effort in right now. So that's kind of the plans. I've got a pile of books over there, and I will choose one within the next half an hour. Just got to hit the showers and then off to bed. Thank you so much for watching. I promise I'm going to get back up to date with everybody's videos soon. It's just, I've subscribed to so many booktubers. I don't know whether I'm coming or going, because when I hit my let's see the subscriptions list and this thing looks like a thesis, I get a little overwhelmed. So yeah, I'm trying to keep up with at least some, but I will make a greater effort as soon as the holidays start. Thank you so much for watching again. Bye for now.